this question shouldn't even be asked. It's not of any consequence whether atheism is compatible with African tradition or religion.
Atheism is based on logic and reasoning. Now, those two things can bring us together. Now, religion is based on superstition and make-believe. That divides us.
Depending on the time and era that we are living in, I think that should be our basis of decision making. That does this ideology make sense, rather than would this ideology please my father? Why do I care? He is not coming back.
Why is Christianity or other religions criticized? Because we see the wrongs that they commit. We see the way they brainwash people, the way they take advantage of the vulnerable people.
We love that a lot, just finding things to blame. Because blaming atheism for Stalin's actions, it's like, I don't know, it's like blaming vegetarianism for Hitler's actions. You know, he was a vegetarian. Now can we say tofu was responsible for World War II? Morioki the vegetarian, can you tell us? No.
Women were experiencing gender-based violence, and it was condoned. If you go back to your parents and tell them, my husband was beating me, your parents will tell you, where? He has already paid dowry. Can you go back to your husband? Ndoa ni kuvumiliana.
Atheists are a diverse group of people, from scientists to humanists to, you know, your random uncle with a YouTube channel. Like, we are so many, and there's no set of guidelines as to this is how you should behave. And so no one can actually kill in the name of atheism.
You know, as with many things in life, most of the times there were coincidences, right? People would be dancing and it starts raining even before they left. What most of them didn't notice is that these ceremonies were always during the rainy season. Nobody ever went to pray to the god of rain in the dead middle of the dry season. Nobody ever did that.
Welcome to another episode of the Atheists Hangout. My name is Doka Soita, and I am a proud atheist. Our topic today is atheist criticisms. We are responding to criticisms that have been leveled against us. Why? Because we are trying to not live in a bubble. You can't just believe what you believe and stay in your lane. You have to listen to what other people are saying. In fact, this topic was suggested by our very good friend Charles Wandalo. Today he's missing in action. He's a Christian apologist, and it covers three major criticisms against atheism as a group. The first one is communist atheism in Russia and China, because there were some terrible things that were done in the name of atheism in those societies. So what do we think about that? And is that a reasonable criticism against atheism? Secondly, there is the aspect of atheism being incompatible with African traditional religion or African traditional beliefs. So why should we as Africans, why should we as Black people follow an idea that contradicts that of our ancestors? We'll respond to that. The third criticism is on the issue of anti-theism, where atheists criticize religion. So they're criticizing us for criticizing them. We are going to respond to that as well. Yes, let's get this show started. We'll begin with that very first one, which is actually, let's start with the second one. Let's start with the second one to just warm up people's mouths. And that is how atheism is incompatible with the religion of our ancestors. Many believers out there, many Christians or many traditional religious followers say that atheism comes from the West. Yet, even some people in the West are going back let me say, unconventional ideas, things like spirituality, new age spirituality, and what have you. So why is it that we as Africans are adopting a foreign concept? Yeah. So what do we think about that criticism? Does it hold any water? And how would we respond to it?
My name is Murioki. I'm a skeptic. For me, what I'll say, atheism is not foreign. It just makes sense, more sense to me. Because even like I'm a Kikuyu, and my people believe that there's a God on top of Mount Kenya. But now, if you think in reality, it's a mountain, and there's no God there. So atheism isn't foreign. It just makes sense. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Madame Shi. I am a humanist and a stand up comedian. And when I think about African traditional spirituality and atheism, for me, I feel like there's a bit of disconnect because we are all just trying to, I feel like people are trying to find meaning. The problem comes when we try to find meaning in just anything, because even then, did they really question some of the rituals and things that they were doing? Is there any substantive data to show that, oh, this is actually the right thing to believe in? Because when it comes to atheism, I think it's just not allowing us to fill in the gaps by filling it with anything. Because even at the end of it all, when I want to think about African traditional spirituality, which is a comforting thought that, oh, we have our own spirituality, we have that, that's beautiful. But what of these claims can we actually prove? And that's where the atheism aspect comes in. We just want to question and find the right knowledge or information, which is not tied to just a particular geographic area. Information is out there, and we need to keep discussing it as humans so we can, find the right facts. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Eston. I am an atheist, a humanist, and also a free thinker. So, atheism and African traditional beliefs not being compatible. But my question is atheism even compatible with any religion if in the first place? Atheism is not compatible with Christianity in the first place. It's not compatible with any religion because it is the opposite of any religion, including our African spirituality or African traditional beliefs. So when you say atheism is it's a foreign concept, I don't think that is logical because atheism is just out of critical thinking. Someone in Africa can ask himself, even if our ancestors were worshiping were praying in shrines or in a mugumo tree, but was that God really does he really exist? There is no evidence. It's just out of critical thinking. It's not about a concept that is from outside Africa. It is a concept that is everywhere, out of critical thinking. Why do Africans reduce themselves to thinking that it is Europeans or Americans who should think critically and not them? So, in the first place, atheism also it's not a foreign concept. It is something that is you just ask yourself, does this God really exist? Because there is no religion that has ever proven their God to exist. Maybe if you are following this, maybe if you are a follower of Jehovah or Nyonyi, maybe that one is the only God that has ever proven to have existed. But the other religions, none. So I don't think that criticism can hold any water.
What I think of that criticism is the person leveling such a criticism was targeting us as Africans, saying what we are practicing is something that maybe we shouldn't do because it supposedly deviates from our roots. But my response to that would be, we really don't get hung up on things because they are our identity or they belong to the people who came before us. And yes, you are right, or it is correct that atheism may be, or it actually is, I think Eston has said it, it is very much not compatible with African religious beliefs, because it stands in stark contrast with that. However, we cannot say that it does not make sense just because it's not compatible with things our grandfathers did. My grandfathers walked naked. I am not rejecting clothes just because they walked around naked. Come on. My grandfathers used to go to the forest and hunt. In fact, even I was telling my friends before, even in my childhood, we went to the forest to look for food, right? To look for meat. I don't do that anymore because I can walk to a butchery and purchase meat, right? My grandfathers today would be almost annoyed that I don't even keep animals because that is not compatible with what they did. What they did was they respected Shamba, right? And I'm from a place where rain is very limited, but they respected the Shamba lifestyle. They had animals, they had beehives. My grandfather had over hundreds of cattle, hundreds of goats. He had over 100 beehives. I used to tell some people like his household was literally Canaan. There was milk and honey all year round, in and out of season. Milk and honey was there. But the reality I'm living today is very different from the reality he lived in. So when you tell me that I cannot adopt something that makes sense just because it's incompatible with what he did, I think there is something wrong with you. It's not wrong with us, but with you, because the thing is, this is a life way that makes logical sense. And that's all we are looking for, something that makes sense. So the question is, would you adopt something that makes sense, even though it's, I don't think anybody today cares about what is compatible with what our forefathers did. I really don't think, because most of the things we are doing as Africans right now, even a microphone, it is not compatible with the things my grandfathers used for communication. And yet I'm using it for communication. A mobile phone, they would be wowed. What the hell is this? But we use these things because they make sense depending on the time and era that we are living in. I think that should be our basis of decision making, that does this ideology make sense, rather than would this ideology please my father. Why do I care? He is not coming back. And even if he was coming back, I'm not living his life. He had his life, he has his life, I have mine. So rather than ask ourselves whether what we are doing would please our dead forefathers, maybe it's about time we started asking ourselves, does what I am doing make my life better as a person, and even make the society better? And when you start asking yourself such questions, you would realize it doesn't make much sense for me to join my grandmothers and go to the mountain and sacrifice to some, I don't know, some unknown god, the god of Mulela and the god of I don't know who else, and then do some Kilume. Okay, I loved the Kilume dance. It was nice. But besides that, that ceremony never actually made rain, right? It was a rain-making ceremony. I know most of you may not know. So it is something that my grandparents did. I participated in the ceremony, but does it really make sense? I could go there for the fun of the dance itself, but I would be delusional to think that that dance actually made rain. It didn't. So that's what I'm trying to say, that yes, these ideologies may be incompatible with what our foreparents believed, but compatibility with our foreparents' beliefs should really not be the basis of our decision making. Our decision making should be based on whether this ideology or this lifestyle or this life way makes logical sense.
I absolutely agree with you, Benson, on that perspective. This question shouldn't even be asked. It's not of any consequence whether atheism is compatible with African tradition or religion. What we should be asking is atheism true? That's the bottom line. We should hold an idea based on one thing and one thing alone. Does it have evidence? If it doesn't, discard it. If it does, go ahead. So that's the bottom line. Additionally, we must also remember that there were many flaws in African traditional religion. Back in those days, child marriage was approved as long as a girl underwent circumcision, female genital mutilation, she was perceived to be ready for marriage. At 12 years, at 13 years, she would get married off, probably to some polygamous man who is 3 times her age. Back in those days, women were experiencing gender-based violence, and it was condoned. If you go back to your parents and tell them, my husband was beating me, your parents will tell you, where? He has already paid dowry. Can you go back to your husband? Ndoa ni kuvumiliana. So are those things that we want to associate with? Yeah. Back in those days, there were a lot of superstitions around things. For instance, in some communities here in East Africa, like Tanzania, it was assumed that being an albino was a bad omen. And sometimes they would be sacrificed. In Western Africa, if you birthed twins, they would be abandoned in a forest because it was perceived to be a source of bad luck. Are those things that we want to follow today? Superstitious thinking belongs to the past. It doesn't matter which permutation it comes in. It could be in the form of African tradition, but it's still superstitious thinking, thinking that is not founded on evidence. Lastly, I put it to you that atheism is not exclusive to the West. Our ancestors had atheists. I'm sure there were people back then who were observing those rituals, the ones that Benson was talking about. They were dancing so that there is rain, and then nothing happens.
I just want to throw a small spanner in the works. I'm asking myself, back then, when they still more in tune with themselves, the environment, nature, is it bad to pick certain elements from them and use it to your advantage in modern day living if it helps you in any way? Because like they could tell what the time using the sun or whatever, they could tell which medicinal herbs to use from the trees. I don't know, certain elements I feel like are not too bad, but is that also a way of escaping, like the way religion picks certain elements and says, but you know, it's not all of it that it's bad? So I'm just asking myself, it's a question to you guys as well. I'm asking myself, is it truly a bad thing to get in touch with what, you know, what they were on at that time, let's say that, instead of more of what we've quote unquote learned from the West?
Okay. To be honest, it's a tough question because you see, like the God of in the Bible, he's in the sky, but our Kikuyu God is on top of Mount Kenya. So for me, that makes more sense because I'll see the mountain and I know God is there. But this other one is in the clouds everywhere, nowhere. So, so I think theirs was better in my view because there's a place he settled and the place could be seen. Yeah. Then also I want to add also atheism is based on logic and reasoning. Now, those two things can bring us together. Now, religion is based on superstition and make-believe. That divides us. So atheism is more powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that there is really no big problem per se in getting in touch with what our foreparents practiced. The part that may be problematic is you realize most of the times the things that are called beliefs or religious beliefs, most of the time they tend to be incompatible with reality and logic. Not always, but most of the time. The practices, they are okay, right? I just said I enjoyed the Kilume dances. The Kilume dance was actually based on a superstitious stroke religious belief that if we go and sacrifice to this god and then do some good dances, it's gonna rain. You know, as with many things in life, most of the times there were coincidences, right? People would be dancing and it starts raining even before they left. What most of them didn't notice is that these ceremonies were always during the rainy season. Nobody ever went to pray to the god of rain in the dead middle of the dry season. Nobody ever did that. It was always in October, in November, somewhere during close to the rainy season. So what are the odds? It's very likely to rain, right? But what I'm saying is now getting in touch with the dance itself, I'm down, right? I just can't find anybody who knows how to play Mwase well it's these days. But getting in touch with those roots, it's cute, right? You know, if I had the ability to just randomly do like my grandfather on a random weekend, be like, today we are eating that god, without even thinking, I just lost 10K because like I have hundreds of them. So why would I care about one? That's what the nigga would do, right? But that might be incompatible with my reality. My reality is the whole land I own in this world is less than 3 acres. You can't feed 100 goats there. You can't, right? But he had tracts of land, like thousands of kilometers squared, right? So he could do that. He had free labor. That is us and that is us and other people. So you find that getting in touch with those things might not be the problem. The problem is they might actually be incompatible with the realities we are living in at the moment. They are good, some of them, others are bad, but the realities differ sometimes.
Yes, in response to her question, her spanner in the works, I agree that there are things we can borrow from African traditional beliefs that are beneficial even today. Something like the way they ate. I think organic foods and refined foods, those are very healthy. Mboga za kienyeji, the sweet potatoes and what have you. I think that's really good. Even their active lifestyle, the fact that most of them were rarely obese, that's definitely beneficial. I think the notion of communality is particularly missing in today's world. I remember citing this when we were talking about African traditional religions in the Zoom meeting. That day we were having it in Kiswahili. And I remember citing the example of a certain lady who lives in the UK, and she's a new mom. She says she doesn't have any stress right now. She doesn't have any postpartum depression. And it's because she's doing what our ancestors did. She's Nigerian, by the way, even though she lives in the UK. She's Nigerian. She's doing what our ancestors did. She's relying on her relatives, her extended family. There are so many family members around where she stays in London. So what she does is she calls upon them and they help her babysit. She's not overwhelmed with being a new mom. Conversely, most Western families leave the entire job of child rearing to the mother. Yet Africans understood that it takes a village to raise a child. So that's definitely something we can borrow. We are not saying trash all of our African traditional beliefs. That's not what we are saying. But what we are saying is discard the superstitious thinking, the irrational beliefs. Those ones, they belong to the trash bin. Yes, that's what I have to say on that issue. Our second criticism is communist atheism in Russia and Asia and China. Why was this a problem? Because state-sanctioned atheism was used to suppress religious believers in their midst. So this is something that is thrown against us by believers. They are telling us, you know what, you want us to become atheists? And atheists were busy killing believers. If we allow our country to be taken over by atheists, isn't that exactly what is going to happen? Yeah. So a brief history of communism and atheism in Russia and China. It's all started with one very bearded gentleman called Karl Marx, who wrote the Communist Manifesto. He believed that capitalism exploits workers. Owners of resources, the capitalists themselves, or the bourgeoisie, take advantage of workers because they don't pay them the full value of their labor. That's his opinion. He also said that the monarchs, the kings and queens, were in cahoots with religious leaders. Usually they were the nobility, to pacify the masses so that they would continue to be exploited by the rich. The rich were called the bourgeoisie, while the poor are called the proletariat. So Karl Marx called religion the opium of the masses, and he believed for true liberation to take place, workers must rise up in a communist revolution where they overtake the capitalist regime. They get rid of all the monarchs, they get rid of all the church leaders, the nobles, who at that time were the clergymen. Get rid of all of them and put power in the hands of the workers. That was his manifesto. Now come Mr. Lenin, Vladimir Lenin of the USSR. At that time, Russia had consolidated various nations around it to form the USSR. He was a communist, and he followed Karl Marx's instructions. He decided that he was going to get rid of all the atheists, all the believers in his midst. At first, he did it by sending some of them to places where they would starve to death because of the excess cold. Him and Stalin. Stalin was also another leader in the USSR. Some of them would be starved to death, and then most of them would be silenced. They were tortured. They suffered under the communist regime. They also used propaganda to silence belief. There was no freedom of religion or freedom of expression in those regimes. That was also true during the reign of Chairman Mao in China. Yeah. So there are people who use that and say, if this is what atheism can do when it is given political power, then we want nothing to do with it. We can't let you guys spread this disease called atheism because it will put us in danger. How would we respond to such a criticism?
For me, what I'd say, when you're in a position of power, there's a lot of power. This Stalin, they were in power, so I'm sure they felt threatened. So when you start killing Christians like that, there's that thing of you're seeing them as a threat. So it's a human thing. It's not atheism, Christian, Islam. It's just a human thing to hold on to power. So I believe Stalin and this Vladimir, that's what they were doing. Even Mao, what they wanted to do was to hold on to power, and they saw Christians as a threat. And Christians, when they came to Africa, they did the same thing. They were killing people because they wanted to have the power, to be the only ones there. So it's not an atheist thing, it's a human thing. Thanks.
I agree with you, Muriaki. That's a very valid point. At the core of it all, humans and escaping accountability. It's like we're on the same, like we love that a lot. Just finding things to blame. Because blaming atheism for Stalin's actions, it's like, I don't know, it's like blaming vegetarianism for Hitler's actions. He was a vegetarian. Now can we say tofu was responsible for World War II? Morioki the vegetarian, can you tell us? No. So it's humans, especially now this Stalin was a guy with a authoritarian complex, God complex. So we can't say it's atheism that made him that way. Like you said, it's just about getting power, no matter what it was, because he was against a lot of things, not just religion. Even artists, even peasants, even intellects, anyone that threatens his rule. So it was about the dictatorship aspect. That was the main issue here. It's all about power.
Okay, I want to also agree with them. Whatever Stalin or the other ones did, in the name of atheism, it is their own. They did it on their own accord, not because as atheists we believe in humanity, and we also we do not agree with what they did. Whatever they did, it has nothing to do with atheism. It is like also if we also start calling out the number of dictators who call themselves Christians, like right now Vladimir Putin himself from Russia, he's a devoted Catholic. He's a Catholic. So what if we and we know what he has done to millions of people in Ukraine? What if we start calling Vladimir Putin out for what we start calling out Christians just because Vladimir Putin has caused a lot of problems to people who are living peacefully in Ukraine. whatever, and we cannot blame Christian or Christianity, because Vladimir Putin is he's not a representative of Christians. He's just him. Whatever he does, it is him, not a whole religion just because of him. And it's not only him. A lot of African presidents right now and in the past, they were devoted Christians, but they really persecuted their own Africans, and even now. So it is wrong to call out atheists just because of what others did in the name of atheism.
Okay, two things I want to say on this criticism. The first one is that for every Lenin, Mao, or Stalin that exists, there are numerous other Christian leaders that instigated wars in the name of religion, not in the name of politics. Yes, as Eston said, that there are dictators or warmongers who happen to be Christians, but they are fighting not in the name of Christianity or in the name of religion. They are fighting in the name of something else, maybe nationalism or white supremacy, or the supremacy of their country, like the supremacy of Russia, or Zionism, the supremacy of Israel. Yeah, so they are attacking Palestine, etc. So they are fighting in the name of another thing, but they happen to be Christians, or they happen to be religious. They happen to be Muslims. Then there are numerous wars. In fact, an analysis has been done of all the wars that have happened in humanity for as long as we have documented them. And it has been found that religion is directly responsible for 7% of them, that people are fighting religious wars. Either it was denominational wars, that this group, maybe the Catholics, like the Irish and the what is the other one, the Church of England, the Catholics and the Church of England are opposing each other. You know, there are those interdenominational wars that led to death. They are religious wars. We've had the Spanish Inquisition. We've had the Salem witch trials. There are so many religious wars that were caused. These are just a few. The fact that we can even name the individuals shows you how minute those atheism-related wars were compared to the religious ones. That's the first take. The second one reiterates what everybody else has said, that these individuals were oppressing in the name of communism largely. Atheism was a byproduct. It was not the main motivation. They were oppressing in the name of communism, because communism often goes with authoritarianism. It has failed everywhere it has been implemented. It has caused massive suffering in most of the places that it has been implemented, even though in theory it sounds very attractive. Hey, we are giving power to the workers. But in practice, I don't know what happens. I think it is because of the power-hungry nature of politicians. So they do it in the name of communism. Then they use any tool that is available to implement that ideology. And that causes suppression. So in line with that, I would like to shed light on another type of atheism. There are two types. There is old atheism or militant atheism, and there is new atheism. Old atheism, militant atheism, is that one that was implemented by states, by governments in communist regimes. Then new atheism began by individuals like Richard Dawkins, you know, the four horsemen of new atheism: Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Dan Dennett, and who is the fourth one? I'm forgetting that fourth one. I'll remember as we continue. But there were four horsemen. And yeah, Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Dan Dennett, and Sam Harris. Yeah, that's the one I was forgetting. So that happened in the early 2000s, after the 9/11 attacks, when it came to light that religious thinking can lead to violent extremism. So those atheists were standing up to speak against it. And the new atheists have been using persuasion, intellectual arguments to share their ideas. And that is what is present today. There are many majority atheist countries, the Scandinavian countries, places like Japan, where most people are majority atheists. And they got there through persuasion, through thinking through their ideas. It was not state sanctioned. As long as you respect the freedom of expression and freedom of belief, then there's no problem. And we, particularly as SAS-K, I don't know about other atheists, we endorse the idea of secularism, which respects people's right to believe what they want to believe. No matter how irrational it is, it's okay. You believe it as long as it's in the private sphere. Don't bring it to our public institutions, or don't use our taxes in order to advance religious ideas. But as long as you keep it to yourself, you have a right to believe what you believe. We don't endorse suppressing an idea, no matter how illogical it is. That's the concept of secularism and the concept of humanism, because I'm also a humanist. Besides being an atheist, I'm a humanist. So I believe that you should respect everybody's human rights. Nobody should be oppressed for their beliefs.
Actually, I agree with you, Dorcas, on a lot of points. There are stuff there I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to. But to add on that, like the harm people have done in the name of religion, but you'll never find like a set of commandments for atheists. Atheists are a diverse group of people, from scientists to humanists to, you know, your random uncle with a YouTube channel. Like we are so many, and there's no set of guidelines as to this is how you should behave. And so no one can actually kill in the name of atheism, because there's no unified voice to say that this is what it stands. So it's just the disbelief in gods. That's it. That's the entire premise of it, you know. But now when it comes to religion, all the atrocities that were committed, like she mentioned, the Spanish Inquisition, there's a time also Galileo got arrested because of astronomy, you see. So that becomes ridiculous. So I think, again, just going back, boiling down to human autonomy and humans taking accountability for actions that they do, and then realizing what is that is pushing that agenda. Is it that atheism? No, that was just a byproduct. So yeah, I just agree with all those points, and I think just human beings should be held accountable for their actions.
Our third criticism is antitheism. Some believers don't like it when we criticize religion, because that's the idea behind antitheism. Atheists, we talk a lot about religion. Many of our topics, when we consider all the topics we've done, the last video shoot we were asking, was Jesus a good role model? In the next video shoot that we are going to do in this sitting, we're going to discuss, did Jesus resurrect? Another one was, would the world be better off without religion? You know, we've talked a lot about religion and we've criticized it, and some believers don't like it. So I would like to hear from you guys. What do you think about this criticism? Is it valid or not?
For me, what I'll say, what I really find disturbing is religion has become a money-making thing. As in that, I'll criticize. I respect it. It does good things, but now people are being ripped off by pastors. People are getting rich, others remaining poor. So now I worry about those people who are being tricked by pastors and remaining poor. Now that I'll criticize. Otherwise, when it does good things, like Catholics, they build schools, they build hospitals, they do good things. But now what I'll criticize is people being ripped off by other people. Thanks.
I agree with Maruki. To add on to your point, actually, I remember the clip where I went viral for stopping a pastor on a matatu. And the main question I asked, and I still ask, is why do certain groups, or why do Christians claim autonomy over free speech? Because it's what they've been doing for ages. You know, they can speak their creed, but the moment you criticize, then that's a problem. And then people attach themselves to a religion or identity, yet it has nothing to do with the persona. For example, when I'm discussing knowledge or trying to find out information, I'm not against you as a person. I'm just trying to find out what is factual so that we can actually now spread great information, not misinformation, So I feel like people hold on too tight to something they were taught, and everything should be up for questioning. So that's why it may seem that it's not against. We're also just practicing freedom of expression and just questioning ideologies that have been here. And I don't think that there's any ideology that is above question, because that's how now they're able to control us when it comes to politics, when it comes to even how our school systems are. So if we already don't have a mindset where we can apply critical thinking and question things, then it means that only a few percentage, like 1%, always will be the ruling class, and everyone else will be stuck suffering in the same routine because you've been taught, no, we should only talk about what we already agree as a society. No, there are very many voices out there that would like to have a voice, but they feel fear. Why should there be fear associated with what you claim to profess? How would I want to be a part of that? Yet at the bottom line, it's not giving me something solid to hold on to. It's just giving more fear and hate and divide.
Yes. So, to add on to that, what we always say is there is no idea that should be beyond reproach. Criticizing Christianity, it should not be a problem if you know you are clean. But why is Christianity or other religions criticized? Because we see the wrongs that they commit. We see the way they brainwash people, the way they take advantage of the vulnerable people. So there is no idea that should be beyond reproach. And if you call out atheists for criticizing you, it is because there's something that you are doing wrong. And it's not like Christianity or other religions they do not attack atheists anyway. Because when I was still a Christian going to church, several times the people who are preaching, the pastor or the evangelicals who went on the pulpit to preach, several times I remember they were attacking those who do not only those who do not believe in any god, but those who don't believe in their own god. Yeah, they would attack. They would call out other practices for being cultish, but they don't see their own cultish practices. Uh, it is not like the religious people, they do not attack atheists anyway, because if you visit nations that are staunchly religious, whether it is Islam or Christianity, atheists they are stigmatized in those countries. And why does that happen anyway? Is because is it that you fear you fear that is it about fear or what can we explain, what can be your explanation to that? So no idea should be beyond reproach.
I think it's very important to keep having these discussions because a lot of atheists are stigmatized and discriminated. Like, I can count so many opportunities that I've lost just because of putting atheism in that. So it makes people afraid to even question anything. And what kind of world is that where we can't discuss things? Isn't that discrimination? Is it fair to discriminate or ostracize a certain group of people just because they're in the pursuit of knowledge? So we should ask ourselves, our beliefs, are they bringing people together, or are they further segregating and disempowering us? Because imagine now there's someone there, an atheist, maybe without a job, without money, without a way to sustain themselves. Is that now the true definition of now what your creed professes? Is that something I would want to be a part of?
Yeah, for me, what I'd say, you see, we're in Kenya, a free country, and our group, we're not registered yet. Imagine it's taken so long for us to be registered just because we are atheists. So that's a kind of discrimination. We've been here for more than 2 years and we're still not registered. So that's a major problem. Thanks.
I'm in agreement with what the other panelists said. What I would add is that we are not criticizing religion for its own sake. We're not doing it to be rebellious. We're not doing it to just be troublemakers. We are doing it because because we want to defend the truth. We've seen what is true. We know that for something to be true, it has to be evident. There has to be proof. If it isn't there, then that's an issue. I like to give the allegory of Plato, the cave allegory, where he says that imagine all your life you've been trapped in chains in a cave, and all you are permitted to see, you can't turn back, you can't turn left or right, you can only look forward, and all you see are shadows. All your life you think that reality consists of shadows. Then one day an individual is released from the cave. They are freed from their shackles and they go out of the cave. They realize, oh my goodness, there are trees, there's water, there are images in 3D, they're physical objects. Those shadows are actually a lower level dimension of 3D objects. That's reality. That is not reality. Reality actually is the physical objects. These were just shadows. So what does that enlightened person do? They could either decide to go their merry way and just forget about their mates who are shackled and still continue to think that shadows are reality, or they can go back to the cave and tell them, hey guys, you know what? There's another world out there. It has trees, it has birds, it has animals, it has all these things. So that's the exact mentality that we have. We've realized religion is a scam. People are being fooled left, right, and center. When you believe a false idea, there will definitely be negative consequences that come from it. So we are attacking the problem from the root, and that's why we are talking about it. And we have seen all those harms. Some of them have been mentioned. Morioki talked about the pastors, but there are so many other harms that religion has caused. Religion has led to, when we discussed about communism, atheism, I told you that 7% of all wars are religious in nature. 7% seems small, but if you look at the millions, if not billions, of people that have died from wars, that's a lot. There's the us versus them mentality that comes from not having the right interpretation of your holy text. So people are discouraged from marrying from another denomination or from another religion. They are discouraged from doing business with people from that religion, or even taking their schools to the religion of another person. Yeah, we have the problem of female suppression. We have many faiths that think of women as second-class citizens. We can't just watch that happen and say nothing about it. We also have the infringement of our liberties, because religion tells you what to wear, it tells you what to eat, when to work, when to rest, it tells you where to take your money, your 10%. It does all these things. It constricts your freedoms, yet it's doing it out of an idea that has no proof. We've got to call it out. So atheists are fighting the good fight. We are on the side of truth. We're not on the side of rebellion. We are not on the side of making trouble. We just want our society to be better. We want our society to be built on the bedrock of critical thinking and skepticism. And what is skepticism? It is believing ideas that have proof and rejecting ideas that lack proof. Overall, thank you for joining us in this discussion. I hope our responses to those criticisms towards atheists have been satisfactory. Remember, atheism is nothing but the rejection of the God claim. We just don't believe that claim that a God exists because there's no proof. Any other thing is fair game. We don't have a doctrine. We are not communists, or we are not, I don't know, vegans or what have you. We don't have a creed. So don't try to put us in a box, please. Don't try to put us in a box. It's just on this God question that we are discussing. So we hope that you'll join us for our next discussion, where we will have a different topic. Remember to share, comment, and like our video. Bye.